All right, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vinay Goel, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Wald.ai. Today, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the threat vector or the risk of using Gen AI at work, specifically around credit unions. And then we'll talk about some of what the usage patterns we have seen with credit unions around Gen AI. And we will then demo the Wall.ai solution as a way to protect against many of these risks. So with that, I'm going to get started and I shall share my screen. All right, let me get into slideshow. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen and we will start. So our goal really is to make it safe to use AI at work. And the way that we are looking at Gen AI today, there is a lot of issues and risks that come with using AI models, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot, any one of these. Few threat vectors. One is that when you put your sensitive data into a prompt, then that data can be used for retraining the models. There have been studies that have shown that about two-thirds of all users in enterprise settings are using versions of Claude or ChatGPT that do not have data protection measures, which means any data that you put into those prompts, whether it's customer data, your employee data, can be used to retrain their model. Second is all of your chat history with this sensitive data is available to that AI vendor, which means their employees have full access to your data. And that is already in violation of compliance regulations, which means that your potential customer PII is now being available to a third-party vendor where you have no control over that data sitting in their database. And then third is that when that AI vendor gets hacked, your data becomes vulnerable. And what we have seen is that you'll see news about backends getting hacked about at least once a quarter from the major vendors out there. So there is a significant risk both from a compliance perspective and in terms of just your overall business secrets about your company being sent to a third-party vendor. What we have seen, Wald is already being deployed in multiple credit unions. And what we have seen at the very high level of the metadata that we have is that about 45% of all AI prompts have sensitive data. And typically those prompts have about 4 sensitive data entities. And they're not typically always around PII. PII and customer data might be about 5% of that. But essentially, the biggest portion is things like your own product plans, your financial data, your code, your documents, your data analysis that you're doing. So all of those types of things are the majority, and those are again open to third-party vendors or to hackers when these vendors get hacked. So you have to be very, very careful about what goes out there. Many of you have either blocked access to these AI vendors or you're educating your employees about how to use this safely, which is a great thing. But like I said, two-thirds of people are using shadow AI already, and it's very hard to get a handle on that. Some of the use cases that we have seen for Gen AI and using these AI models is, like I said, people are uploading spreadsheets. Spreadsheet could be anything from customer data to HR data to internal product plans, all of those types of things, and are looking to analyze that data, summarize that data. People are drafting emails or presentations. There's a lot of IT folks that are using it for troubleshooting or how-to queries. People are trying to do marketing messages. What do I put in my LinkedIn post? Or I want to send a message around, a closure for our Thanksgiving holidays and things like that. So there's a lot of drafting that is happening. People are doing market research. Where should my next retail location for my credit union be? In my neighborhood, for example. There's back office queries. So the use cases are very varied. They tend to be more day-to-day type of activities that people across marketing, engineering, sales, operations, all of these folks are using this on a very regular basis. And then the reason that you really need to be careful about the data is you've seen probably publications from the NCUA, which talks about how AI resources should be monitored and how data protection is super important. So I think everyone's encouraging, whether it's the NCUA or the US Treasury, everyone is encouraging use of Gen AI, but as a supervised capability and not just generally a public endpoint for everyone to use on a basis. So I'm just seeing if there are any questions. Okay, seems like we're good. KV, please, ping me if there are anything that's people are having issues with the webinar, or if there are questions that come up. So I want to introduce you now to Wald.ai. And what Wald does, like I said earlier, is that we make it safe to use AI at work. And the types of things that we enable, number one is we are a B2B SaaS provider. And within Wald, you get access to all the leading AI models out there. So from the latest versions of ChatGPT to Claude to Gemini to Grok, the image generation models like Nano Banana or Imagen One, essentially you get access to all of these. And as new models come in, we keep updating our application so you have access to it. Not only do you get unlimited access to these models via a single subscription, but we also make sure that we detect and anonymize any sensitive data across a very broad spectrum of data classifiers. All right, so it could be PII, but it could be product plans, it could be financial data, it could be employee data. We essentially catch it all before we send your data to these AI models. So that's sort of the one core feature that we have. The other feature within Wald.ai allows you to build your own private AI models. So if you've got a project happening and there are 5 people working on it, and there's like 50 documents that you guys have, you can upload all of those documents in a secure fashion onto Wald.ai, and we would essentially create a private model for these 5 users. Similarly, if the HR lead wants to create and upload all of your HR trainings, benefits, policies, and create an HR assistant that can be shared across the company, you can do that on Wald.ai. And then lastly, we also have what we call AI agents. So if you're doing things like deep web research, for example, the example that I provided around where should I add my new locations for retail locations for the credit union, that could be a web research task that goes out and does a bunch of Google searches, tries to collect all the relevant data around demographics and competitors and best locations and traffic and all of those types of things, and comes back with a recommendation on new locations. You can do things like build a slide deck or write blog posts that are SEO optimized. So we have a bunch of these, what we call very useful day-to-day assistants and AI agents that you would not find in typical AI models directly, all within our platform. All right. With that, I'm going to move to the demo at this point. So we will show you some of the capabilities of Wald.ai. So I'm switching my screen. Hopefully you can now see Wald.ai. You would make
so
sure
Vinay,
that...
we have one question from Steve. So he talks about external access can be shut off in ChatGPT and others. So I think there's a little bit of the clarity is not there in terms of not allowing ChatGPT to use data for training, whereas it has a retention policy. So yeah, you can address that.
Yes, if I understood the question correctly, there is you can use your users can use Wald. What if they go directly to ChatGPT? And I think there are multiple ways of addressing that. One is that you could shut off access just at the URL filtering level or the firewall level to all direct access to whether it's a ChatGPT or Claude. That is something that you could do. Second is, I think, and once I show you the demo, you'll find that users really don't have an incentive to go directly to ChatGPT once they start using Wald, because we'll show you that you get the latest versions of ChatGPT that you would otherwise be spending $20, $30 per user per month for each one of these. Um, so you have to basically think about, do you want to do that, or do you want to use the corporate sponsored version? Now, I think, Steve, you mentioned that ChatGPT has access to stop sharing. Yes, if you get the enterprise version of ChatGPT, then they will not use your data to retrain their models. But then the other two issues that I highlighted, which is that their employees still have full access to your data. And then when they get hacked, your data is vulnerable. So there are some half measures, basically, which basically by policy, they say they will not use it. But I think what we want to do is technically enforce these types of things. And that's the area where Wald comes in, where we can technically enforce some of these things and also make sure that that data that is viewable by their employees is not actually useful and is fully anonymized. Let me show you the application, and then maybe we can come back for additional questions. So coming back here, I believe you should be able to see my thing. So you would sign into Wald, or your employees would sign into Wald using the same enterprise credentials that they use for any one of your other applications. So you could sign in with Google, sign in with Microsoft. If you use SSO, then we will do a very quick integration with your SSO as well. Once you come in, you'll see that you have access to all the leading AI models from ChatGPT, including ChatGPT 5.0, from Google, Gemini 2.5, from Grok 4, all of the Anthropic models, and you also have the image generation models that are available on our platform. And you can route your query to any one of those. If you don't want to choose one, we will choose one for you using the auto route functionality. We also have a internally hosted version or private instance of one of the state-of-the-art LLMs called Wald GPT. And this, I will come back to this and explain why and how we use Wald GPT. So let's just say I'm going to choose ChatGPT for my first query, and I'm going to show you an example of a query here. So here's a typical query that you might want to draft a response to a customer complaint where you're putting in specific data about that customer, like the name, the account number, maybe the 4 digits of the debit card, and the issue that you're trying to resolve. Now, what happens is when we send this via Wald to ChatGPT, the first thing we do is we sanitize this prompt to make sure that nothing sensitive is being sent. So essentially, this is what got sent to ChatGPT, where we were able to detect automatically that here's PII, here's another piece of PII, this is a card number, the dollar amount, the retail store that the charge was related to, and the date. So all of these things were detected as sensitive information, redacted. This is what we got back from ChatGPT. It has all of your redactions in place, i.e., it didn't have any of your sensitive data. But when we do get the response back, we rehydrate your data back into the response. So the user experience will look exactly like what it's looking here. It's completely seamless, but none of your private data was essentially sent to the AI model here. So what we do see is the other thing I wanted to highlight here is that everything that is happening on Wald.ai is end-to-end encrypted with your private keys, which means that none of these conversations are visible to Wald employees. And if Wald were to ever get hacked, then this data again is useless to the hacker because they don't have your private key. So that's taking it to the next level, which is essentially anything that we send to the AI model is completely anonymized, including your identity is anonymized, and all your private data, sensitive data is anonymized. And then everything that is on the Wall platform is end-to-end encrypted. I'm going to show you a couple of other examples so you get a sense of everything that we catch. So assuming you had some internal data about your credit risk model and what your weights are for that model. And again, this does not have anything to do with names or PII and those types of things, but yet there is a lot of sensitive information here, which you don't want to see leaking. We would essentially sanitize this as well. And you'll see that we were able to figure out everything that was sensitive, including the name of your score, the percentages allocated to each one of these things, and you were then able to still build out the how the description that you were looking for. If for any reason you didn't like the ChatGPT response, you can very quickly click here and say, I want to see a response from one of these other AI models, and use Claude, for example, and you'll get the response from Claude, and you can compare and contrast the different responses from the different models. You can even add a third and a fourth model here if you were interested in doing that. In many cases, you might have queries that, for example, don't even have specific sensitive entities in them. So let's take an example where someone says something like this, which is, my boss is harassing me, how should I speak to HR? So there's nothing here that we can actually redact in terms of a name or a number and those types of things, but we still understand that the intent of this query is sensitive, and we would essentially sanitize it. And you'll see that we use a technique called deflection, where when we see this, we essentially remove the specific accusation in this perspective and make it a more generic query, so it doesn't actually create a liability for the company or for the credit union. And I'm going to show you one last example where I'm going to actually upload a file. And let's say this is a file with a bunch of attendees at an event, and I am going to ask things like how many attendees were from the Dallas area, for example. Right now, it's very hard to take a spreadsheet that might have 500 entities or entries or rows, or maybe even 5,000, and try to sanitize it. So this is where Wald GPT, which is our private instance of our product, comes in. So anytime we see things like document attachments, we would automatically route this to Wald GPT, which is a private instance. All of these files are fully end-to-end encrypted. There is zero data retention. And you'll see that it's found the 8 attendees from the Dallas area that were at the event. So that's the other thing that we do. With that, I want to show you a little bit about the administrative controls that we have. So what you will see is we have let me share this tab here. So we have a management console, and you can essentially look at all of the audit logs of what your employees are putting in to these into Wald.ai. You can see if they were sensitive, non-sensitive, which AI models were used for each one of these queries. You get a full dashboard of how many users you have, how many queries they have done month to date, how many of them were sensitive, what was the classification of that sensitive data, everything from code to PII to employee data. You understand sort of which AI assistants were used, which agents, and then we talked about the fact that you can do deep web research, build presentations, write articles, and you get to do full user management. So you can add users, delete users, promote them to admin, and the like. Hopefully this is useful. There are other features that I don't think we're going to have time for, which is allowing you to build sort of a private model. as well based on uploading your data, and we would connect into things like OneDrive, Google Drive, SharePoint to pull files in as needed for any of these. I'm going to take a pause, um, and I will see if there are any questions. There are some, I guess, Steve, you have some more questions. Um, but perhaps some of these questions I think require a deeper conversation, and we're happy to have that with you prior, maybe after the call, if that's okay. Um, so I'm going to go back to the slide deck and just talk about what it is that we do in terms of cost and deployment. So it is our plan is essentially a subscription plan. It's a very simple plan. It's $19.99 per user per month, and that gives you unlimited access to all of the models that I've talked about. Right, so there's no limitation. And if you compare that, you would essentially be paying $19.99 or $20 per model if you were to use even the consumer version. And we're giving you the enterprise terms with that. And we essentially do all of the anonymization, the masking, providing you all the enterprise transparency, visibility, compliance features with that, and the ability to create your own private model. So hopefully you'll find this to be very compelling. We've actually seen this be adopted by, like I said, multiple credit unions across the board. And we also have a 14-day free trial. So if you were to go to our website, you can essentially sign up for a free trial, and then invite as many users as you like as part of that trial, and get a sense for that product. And obviously reach out to us if you have any questions. So maybe what I will do is we have maybe only 5 minutes left. So I'm going to try and wrap up and then see if we can answer any questions that come up. But what we are seeing is credit unions across the US that have been adopting Wald. And I think a lot of it is because of the security features that we have, the seamless user interface, the ability that to not be tied into a single vendor, AI vendor, and be able to upgrade very, very easily as new models come in. So the other thing is, today, if you were to use things like DLP or data loss protection systems, they are very much regex or regular expression matching. They fail to essentially understand all of the dynamic type of data that goes into an AI model, things like your employee data, things like your private project plans, internal memos, all of those types of things. Whereas we have a very comprehensive way of catching everything based on the context of that conversation. The third point, again, is that everything on Wald is end-to-end encrypted at every stage of the application data. And that really helps you manage compliance and regulatory requirements that you have. And we have an admin console that gives you full visibility into discovering your audit logs, managing users, understanding the type of data that we are protecting. So, and these agents of ours really focus on the day-to-day use cases, everything from deep research to creating slide decks to blog posts. And we have other things coming, like essentially doing deep data analysis where you can upload, tens of spreadsheets and then ask for pivot tables, data normalization, summarization, those types of things. So these are sort of your standard everyday type of analytics, or what a business analyst would be doing for you. And then the ability to build custom assistants for internal documents, where we make sure that, again, everything that you upload to build those assistants are fully end-to-end encrypted and not visible to anyone in our organization. So with that, again, thank you. You can connect with us at wald.ai. You can see my email here, and hopefully that gives you, feel free to email me with any questions, and I'll be very prompt at answering those. So I will stop sharing at this point and see if we can answer any questions that are there. All right. Seems like we don't have any additional questions. So thank you again for your time. And like I said, please reach out to me, reach out to anyone on our team, and we'll be happy to get you started or answer any questions. Thanks again. Take care. Bye-bye.